Hey everyone, this is Chrono, and in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about movement in Diablo 4 and how to use it to your advantage, both in terms of improving your offense to maximize your DPS, but also to keep yourself alive in combat. Now this video is primarily focused towards those who play Rogue, but if you main something else, you may still find useful information here, especially if you play a build that has high attack speed, requires kiting, and needs very precise movement, so stick around. By default in Diablo games, the left click has two functions. One is simply movement, like if I'm holding down left click, my character just simply keeps attempting to follow it, so that's how you get from place to place. But if there's an enemy on screen and I start spamming left click on it, whatever ability I have bound to left click, I will attempt to attack it. And this has one major issue, and that is, let's pretend there's a whole bunch of enemies in this upper right quadrant of my screen, and my intention is to maneuver between them and not stop. I don't want to attack at all, I just want to move to a very specific location where my mouse is. If the game recognizes there's an enemy there, you'll see the health pop up as though it's your current target, and clicking left click will actually cause you to attack it, which is not necessarily what we want. We want to be able to move. So everything you do in combat needs to be intentional. If you want to move, you want to make sure that your character isn't doing something unintentional. And this is a very important instance where you need to be able to prevent that and recognize that. So I'm going to show you my keybind setup and walk you through how it changes some of your inputs to do some basic functions, and hopefully you'll see improvements in your gameplay if you follow along. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you might notice that my puncture is not bound to the default of left click. I chose a different key, in this case E specifically, so I use E to attack rather than left click. My left click itself is still allowing me to move around, but it is now decoupled from the action of auto attacking. So anytime there's an enemy underneath my mouse, if I click on them, I will no longer puncture them. I will actually always move to them, which is what I intend. And the way you go about doing this is by utilizing a function in game called force move. So to get to that, you press escape, go to options under controls. If you scroll down to the gameplay section, you notice there's a force move button that you can bind. And I moved my auto attack away from this move interact basic slot. By default, this is where your left click will be bound. I change it to E, and I move my left mouse click to force move. Now, whenever this topic comes up, a lot of people bring up middle mouse button. I personally don't like it in practice. You are more than welcome to try it, and this is the type of thing where it's up to your personal preference. But this is the ability that you bind to be able to separate movement from attacking in combat. So whenever you want to move through enemies, this is what you utilize as force move. Now with those bindings set, your left click will no longer ever attempt to auto attack. So if I ever left click on an enemy, I will move to their location rather than puncture. If I ever want to puncture, I have to intentionally press E, or whatever button you want to bind to that function. Right now I don't have an enemy on screen, so if I actually want to stop an attack, I have to hold shift. And shift in Diablo games causes your character to stand in place. So I'm holding shift, and if I press E, I will attack in place. So I can just hold shift and spam E and I will attack in place. This comes in handy when I'm going from place to place and there's nothing to attack. I do this to maintain my aspect of might damage reduction. So going into combat, I'll have max duration of my 20% DR. Now, generally in combat, you want to avoid situations where you're just attacking while standing still. Attacking while standing still makes you a very easy target, especially if there's a whole bunch of projectiles coming at you. Or there might be a line that appears from one of those ghost archers. If you're standing still and you're having to react to it, you may have to waste a dash or an evade. If you're taking steps in between attacks, then your character's already prepped to avoid things that are coming at you as the situation evolves in middle combat. If you're making micro movements in between attacks, then it makes it so that you don't have to panic. Right now I'm running around by holding left click, and I'm also holding down shift. And that's because there's no targets on screen. And anytime I want to auto attack with puncture, I just press E. If I want a twisting blade, I just right click while holding shift. Now if I mash E, my character will now attempt to puncture at maximum speed. This is as fast as my character can attack, whether I do it standing still or I do it moving around. But the difference is when I'm mashing it rather than holding down E, my character makes every attempt to move in between attacks, because there are frames in between every attack where you're able to move. And with force move bound to my left click, if I'm holding down left click and shift at the same time, just spamming E, during that cooldown after the animation of puncture, my character will always make every opportunity to utilize those free frames to move. Now, once I'm in combat and there's actually enemies on screen, I don't have to hold shift. I only needed to hold shift there because there was nothing to attack. But with enemies on screen now, I'm just holding the left click. If I want to attack him, I just mouse over it and push E. All I'm doing is left clicking and pushing E. And anytime I click on the enemy, I actually move to his location. You'll notice I'm not actually puncturing when I click on this enemy. If I click on him, I move to him. If I push E, I puncture. That's when I attack. Now in the middle combat, like this makes it very easy for me to maneuver from place to place. All my movements and all my attacks are intentional. Anytime I want to move and click, my character never accidentally punctures. If I want to puncture, I will press E while messing over an enemy. If I want to twisting blade, just right click over them. So long as I'm holding left click, my character is moving to that target's location. Now, before I hop into a nightmare dungeon to put it into practice so you can see how much of a difference it makes, I wanted to point out that this setup may be a little weird if you play rapid fire with a ranged ability such as puncture. So let me pull up my skill bar real quick and spec into it. I'm going to take that temporarily, put in rapid fire. I found that having puncture on right click in this case actually is a little bit easier for kiting, because when you're playing a ranged build, a lot of times you may find it easier to kite backwards. And this is the type of action that I would do very, very often in Diablo 3 with Demon Hunter playing multi-shot. Like, as an enemy is following me, like I want to separate the distance by kiting away. So I've always personally found putting the range spammable ability on right click to be a little bit easier. And then that makes it so that E will be my rapid fire instead. Now, there's no ability that's spammable like multi-shot in this game, but if there's ever a situation where like you need to spam puncture, like the way you just see me do right now, the way I'm doing this is I'm holding shift to throw out my puncture. I immediately left click behind my character to move. I hold shift again to throw. And I do this on repeat, but really fast. So again, I'm standing still with shift, holding shift, right click to throw puncture, left click behind my character to move, shift again to puncture, click to move, shift puncture, click, shift puncture, click, shift puncture, and then just do this as fast as possible. Just like speed up that series of actions that I just described to you, just over and over and over. And you can do it while holding shift, by the way. You never have to let go of shift. It's just a matter of like moving your mouse back and forth, and well, I don't know. It just takes practice. I've been playing Demon Hunter for like 10 years, so it's not super practical in Diablo 4 because, like I said, the only ability that's spam like this is puncture. But if the situation ever comes up where you need to kite like this, and I would recommend putting whatever spammable ranged ability you have on right click. Earlier, I attempted to hop into a dungeon in an effort to clear the dungeon and give commentary at the same time, but I found that I don't do a very effective job showcasing that, and while staying alive. So instead, I'm going to give commentary on a T100 clear I did a couple days ago. Hopefully, they'll give you some insight on why movement is so important and how you can use it to your advantage if you utilize it well, both offensively and defensively. So we're about to approach a room in Mercy's Reach that has like a shit ton of elites, like full shamans and big Khazra. They all have the ability to stun. And if I get hit by an overhead stun by the big Khazra, it'll almost one-shot me. So I'm really afraid of this guy. So my top priority is to conceal into the backline here. So you notice if I find him, immediately smoke bomb him and try to focus him down. or at least do as much damage as possible. I didn't freeze them, so I leave because the Khazra big guys are coming towards me. I end up freezing those 2 targets, and if you get frozen by me, you pretty much get one shot by 1 crit. I do like 8 damage to targets that are frozen in this build. So I'm constantly moving and I'm very afraid of getting hit by that overhead slam right there. So I'm keeping my distance. I go in when I feel like I'm healthy enough. My evade's available. I'm trying to be a little bit skittish here because, like I said, if I get hit by any one of their slams, I get 1 shot. Whether he slams, I evade through him, and now I just win because I know his slams don't cool down. All the shamans got annihilated early on, and I just whittled them down little by little as long as I have enough potions. Right, in Mercy's Reach, there's actually 2 rooms that have that similar type of setup where it has a bunch of big Khazra shaman guys that do the overhead slam with a bunch of shamans in the back. So I'm gonna approach this the exact same way. I'm gonna go in, conceal, sneak to the backline, and hopefully I can find an isolated shaman and burst him down. So after I clear this pack, that's what you'll see me do. I go in, I conceal, sneak to the backline, hopefully there's a shaman by himself. I find one, I throw a smoke grenade, hopefully it freezes. It didn't freeze him immediately, but my grenade proc did freeze him, so he just dies instantly. And there's a bunch of icicles on the right side spewing projectiles at me, so by constantly moving, I'm dodging a lot of them. I'm not dodging all of them, which is fine, but because like those icicles are not my focus. I did end up getting frozen solid because of the ice wall, but I had my concealment back up, so I was able to free myself from that. But if I wasn't moving, those icicles would have froze me very early on. I would have just gotten chain frozen into an overhead stun by the Khazra, because my concealment was used on pull to get an initiation. I'm playing a build that's pretty greedy. But hopefully this video was useful to you. Hopefully like you learned something a little bit new about what difference it makes to have good control over when you attack, how you attack, and how you move. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give this video a like and a sub if you enjoyed it, and let me know if you like this type of content. I'll see you guys next time.